broadly, as you sit here a couple of days after this election, how do you see a Trump 2.0 when it comes to foreign policy and geopolitics? Will it make the world safer or more dangerous?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Secondly, no one can predict how any president is going to act in the future. That's simply the reality. We can draw on, in the case of Donald Trump, his performance in the first Trump administration, where I served for almost 3 years, and I can give you a few points on that. But let me go back to Panetta's point. He's absolutely correct, but to put it in another way, these various threats are ever more integrated and coalescing to form a basic global threat to the international order based on peace, prosperity, and the promotion of democratic and individual values that we have been leading since the 1940s. That is the most important thing. And we didn't have this same problem, at least to this degree, during the first Trump administration. And the first thing that President Trump will have to get his mind around is that this is a real threat. It's a coordinated threat. You can't separate out Russia, the good guy that my personal relationships will help us do better with the bad guy, Xi. In fact, in this confrontation so far, Xi has been the restraining force and Putin the more aggressive force. And the administration, the Trump administration, will have to figure out a way to deal with this, beginning with the fact that it is bad for the stock market, for the safety of Americans, for everything that we are doing in the world and frankly at home, to have a disorderly world with tens of thousands of nuclear weapons. Be afraid if we don't play the role we've been playing for the last 70 plus years.
Well, Ambassador, we've heard a lot about this notion of peace through strength from Donald Trump and those close to him. I guess I just have a question about relative strength, because it's one thing if the U.S. is also projecting strength, but if the way to achieve peace is also giving some more relative strength to others, like, say, Vladimir Putin, if he's allowed to actually take over what is sovereign Ukrainian territory in some kind of negotiated agreement, if others are also becoming stronger, does that not somehow kind of make us weaker?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't predict what Trump is going to do on Ukraine or any place else. He had very unusual, outside-the-box negotiating with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. But in the end, it was to achieve longstanding American goals to denuclearize North Korea. When Kim Jong-un wouldn't play along, the negotiations broke off. So we will have to see. I wouldn't predict anything. Military strength remains the core. It is surrounded by several other things. One is economic strength, and frankly, the United States is in very good shape compared to Russia, compared to China, compared to even our partners in Europe or in East Asia. Thirdly, it is the unity of the country. For the moment, we certainly have that with the election results of the other day. And fourthly, it's the alliance and partnership system that we have. We don't have to do everything if we have people on the ground, be it the Japanese and Koreans in East Asia, be it the Israelis in the Middle East or the Saudis, or our NATO friends in Ukraine containing Russia in Europe.
Take us to the Middle East, Ambassador. What does this election mean for the constant retaliation between Israel and Iran, the back and forth militarily that we've witnessed over the course of the past several months? Will it end?
Sure. First, very quickly, this isn't a back and forth, say, between, Austro-Hungary and France in the 18th century vying for control. This is an aggressive attempt to achieve hegemony in the region by Iran by subverting Arab states. They have more or less done state capture of 5, counting Gaza, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Using as an excuse the need to destroy Israel and push the United States out. Israel is fighting back. We are supporting Israel. That is the basic reality in the Middle East. I think President Trump will continue the policies of Joe Biden to support Israel, try to integrate it through the Abraham Accords within the Arab world, which is the most important part of the Middle East. And thirdly, probably more vigorously contest Iran's presence in the region and apply maximum pressure through actually implementing the many economic sanctions that are officially on the books against Iran. So it won't be a difference of major strategy. It'll be a difference of degree.
So you don't think, for example, Ambassador, that Donald Trump would be supportive of Israel more directly striking Iran, like Iranian nuclear facilities, for example, or energy infrastructure, things the Biden administration had been warning against?
The Biden administration made that point to Israel, and Israel listened to it. But the Biden administration the other day did something reportedly very important, which was to warn Iran, okay, this duel is over. If you strike Israel again, there will be no restraint on what America tells Israel to strike. And frankly, if there were another Iranian strike, the Israelis wouldn't listen to us. More importantly, we are moving offensive. I want to underline offensive systems such as F-15 fighters into the region along with B-52s. They're not there to shoot down missiles fired from Iran. They're there to blow up targets in Iran. That is a very strong message, not only that Israel may strike, but we may be with out there with them. That's very aggressive. I don't think Donald Trump could add much to that.
We've only got about a minute left, Ambassador. I don't mean to open a whole new topic here, but when it comes to China, can we assume that Taiwan will be safe for the next 4 years?
We can, partially because people are a little bit afraid of Donald Trump. I'm a little bit afraid of him, having worked in his administration. Secondly, Xi is showing some real signs of restraint, particularly vis-a-vis North Korea and its aggressive support of Russia, but even of Russia itself. It doesn't send any weapons. It's clear that it thinks this confrontation has gone too far, and it notices that Team America, be it in Ukraine or in the Middle East, is winning or at least not losing, and it doesn't want to be on the losing side.